Welcome to the X Corner. I'm here to add a little invitation to the SuperHeroCrew. I'll be covering the X comics for the weeks of December 26th, 2018 and January 2nd, 2019. These weeks have 5 comics: Uncanny X-Men number 7, X-Force number 1, they're from last week, and Mr. and Mrs. X number 7, Shatterstar number 4, and Uncanny X-Men number 8 from this week. Spoilers, of course. We'll start with Uncanny X-Men number 7, written by Ed Brisson, Matt Rosenberg, and Kelly Thompson, with art by Perry Perez. We get a time jump at the beginning of this issue. The young X-Men have been stuck in the Age of Apocalypse reality for months. Armor and Glob have been protecting X-Man to find a way back home, but they're being hunted by Pixie and Rockslide, who want to kill X-Man in the Age of Apocalypse, where he's weaker, to save their reality. X-Man explains why he's trying to fix their reality. He equates the Age of Apocalypse reality to a living hell, and when he went to normal reality, he felt he had found heaven, but he soon realized it was just a subtler hell, with the same issues under the surface. He wants to make it like the heaven he envisioned. Pixie and Rockslide catch up to the trio and they fight. Pixie reasons with Armor as they fight, while Glob and Rockslide just battle it out. Eventually Pixie seems to have gotten through to Armor, and she goes up to the X-Man seemingly to kill him. This was a weird issue. There were some action pieces. At first, Fiery Glob and Armor are fighting some robots. At least I hope they're robots, because they were ripping limbs off pretty easily. And it sort of negates the moral dilemma at the end about killing someone. Then we get the Young X-Men Civil War. Glob and Rockslide fight, which was pretty good, and I do like Glob being powerful in his fiery form. Other than that though, not much of a story. We get thrust in media res, and don't get the full experience of the team dealing with their new reality. I think it would have been a much more interesting story with it being at the end. Armor seems to switch sides pretty easily, if they've been running for months from Pixie and Rockslide. I think this might have been the weakest of the Uncanny runs so far, mostly due to the rushed nature of the story. 7 out of 10. Then there is X-Force number 1, written by Ed Brisson and art by Dylan Burnett, with a backup drawn by Juanan Ramirez. X-Force has reunited to try and find Kid Cable and get some revenge for his killing of the regular-sized Cable. Domino, Shatterstar, Cannonball, and Warpath rumble some terrorists who are working with Cable to get some guns. They find out Kid Cable went to Transia, where the guns seem to be coming from. They head out to try and find him. Meanwhile, in Transia, Kid Cable is breaking his partner out of prison. His partner is in pieces, though, as he's the cyborg Deathlock. Kid Cable starts to put him back together, but is interrupted by the Transian military, so he throws the pieces over his back, Chewie in 3PO style, and runs. All looks lost as the two are surrounded by guards when X-Force shows up. They save Kid Cable and Deathlock and bug out to a nearby country to get some answers. Kid Cable puts Deathlock back together and they explain that they're after the weapon suppliers because the weapons are from the future. Before a plan of action can be made, though, the news comes on to tell them that Kid Cable and Deathlock are wanted for the murder of the Transian president. He was actually killed by his general, who was murdering mutants behind the president's back. This comic was pretty fun. The characters seem a little off from their last appearance, especially Warpath, whom we last saw as the Boy Scout in Astonishing X-Men, but he was also like this in Weapon X, so I guess that's a wash. The art at first was jarring. It's almost Gorillaz-esque in body shape, especially Warpath again, who looks like Frankenstein. After a while though, you get used to it, it does lend dynamism to the story, especially when Shatterstar and Warpath are dealing with some terrorist guys. Great panels. I think this will be a fun series, and I like Kid Cable, less in concept than regular Cable, but more in practice. He really works for some reason. 8 out of 10. Oh, and there's a Larry's Boom Boom backup story, where she sleeps through her alarm and tries to catch up with the rest of the team and ends up killing all the terrorists the others left. The art there was really good. Obviously, though, because he has Juan in his name. Then we have Mr. and Mrs. X number 7, written by Kelly Thompson, art by Oscar Vazeldois. We find a heroic couple suspended over a pit of alligators. They're about to escape, as they always do, when Mojo cuts in. He says he's seen this before and wants to switch genres. He spins his genre wheel, and as much as he wants clowns, it lands on noir. Now Gambit and Rogue are PIs to look for a MacGuffin. They fight a bunch of suited goons and get the prize, but Rogue is starting to realize that something isn't right. Her powers then go off, and before Gambit can calm her down, she drains him to death. Mojo is taken aback by this and demands a rewrite. Spiral suggests another couple, but Mojo says these two scored highest in the polls. So it's another genre thanks to Spiral's magic. This time, fantasy. We see someone sneak into Sleeping Rogue's room to kiss her to wake her up from her slumber, but in an M. Night Shyamalan twist, it's not Gambit, it's Longshot. Mojo has recast the male lead. First off, the art in this comic was gorgeous. It's insanely good. When they switched genres, it was so different I went back to the credits to see if there was multiple artists on the book. But nope, it's all Bazaldois. I think this is even better than the last time he was drawing this. Rogue in the Noir story was, well, very nice. I love the writing too. Mojo as a meta-commentator is so perfect. He works best as a comedic villain, and it is used here perfectly. This series just gets better. I'm so confused. How is a Rogue and Gambit series with a dumb name one of the best out right now? 8.5 out of 10. That art. Wow. Next we have Shatterstar number 4, written by Tim Seeley, art by Carlos Vila, with flashbacks by Geraldo Sandoval. Shatterstar arrives at the gladiatorial arena too late to save one of his tenants, but he challenges the rest of the bad guys to end this and free the other tenants. He kills the others and is forced to face off against his old flame, Gringrave. She beats him soundly and taunts him in flashbacks, but he gets to the last laugh. As she hugs him, he falls back with her onto a sword, impaling them both. Before he can free his tenants, though, Grandmaster enters the arena and disintegrates Shatterstar. This was better than last issue. The flashbacks have a nice 90s style, but were ultimately pretty useless. I guess they showed how evil Gringrave was, but we kinda knew that. The end would have been a little more shocking if we didn't know Shatterstar would survive somehow. There's at least one issue left in this series, and he's in X-Force. I did like the over-the-top way he skewered himself and Gungrave on a sword. The first time we meet Shatterstar, back in New Mutants, he stabbed himself through the stomach to kill someone behind him. Very 90s indeed. I just wish this series was totally different, but I can appreciate the nostalgia of it, even if it doesn't hit the nerve for me. I'm glad it's only a miniseries, but as Mr. and Mrs. X proved, that saying it's a miniseries doesn't make it true. Then again, this is no Mr. and Mrs. X. I'll give this a 6.5 out of 10. Not great, but executed adequately. Lastly, we have Uncanny X-Men number 8, written by Ed Brisson, Matt Rosenberg, Kelly Thompson, and art by R.B. Silva this time. As we left off, Armor is about to kill X-Man, and then we go back to the X-Men. They are fighting the Horsemen, who are still on board with X-Man's vision, even though he and the kids had disappeared. Legion is comatose, and Kitty shows up with a guest, Apocalypse. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Beast confronts a Knoll who stole the vaccine to cure the X gene, it seems. Back with the X-Men, they figure out that the kids in X-Men were sent into Legion's mind to the Age of Apocalypse. Bishop says that's an evil place, and they'd better get the kids out. Kitty wants to slow their roll and figure this whole thing out, and suddenly Apocalypse goes for Legion. If he can kill him, then X-Man will die in his mind. Everyone starts fighting, Kitty is trying to stop everyone, and Bishop has Psylocke send him into Legion's mind to save the kids. Bishop stops Armor from killing X-Man, and she accuses the X-Men of abandoning them for months. He tells them that they've only been there 5 minutes. With Bishop showing up though, it tweaks X-Man and he realizes where he is. He confronts Legion, who plans to use his brain to contain X-Man. X-Man though wipes out Legion's consciousness and takes over. The kids and Bishop get back to the real world, but now X-Man and Legion have become one. This was a good ending to the Age of Apocalypse strip. It explains why they didn't show all the months the kids were there, like I was complaining about before, since it wasn't real. This is a rather intertwined story with all the threads coming around, which is nice. I did like the quiet scene with Beast and Knoll too. It reminds us that there is a bigger story brewing with the vaccine. So just when we thought X-Man was impossible to beat, now he's merged with the other impossible to beat insane mutant, Legion. I'm not sure that escalation was needed, but it did provide a nice last panel reveal. This is an epic weekly story. They cannot keep this up, I don't think. 8.5 out of 10. So there you go for the old year into the new. 2019 is going to be the year of the X-Men, I can feel it. I was discussing with my comrade, Jack, about the X-Men entering the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we decided the best way would be a pre-credits roll on Avengers Endgame. Now that would be epic. You heard it here first. Until next week, stay Xy.